Hi friends, I have another craft for you today. Today we're going to do Mod Podge, and I think that's just a fancy name for glue. So if you have Mod Podge, that's awesome. But if you don't and you have another glue that will dry clear, like even Elmer's glue, that'll work. So what we need is some sort of glue, so I'm going to use Mod Podge today. And then we're going to do two different crafts. So the first one is from a jar. So this is a pasta sauce jar that we emptied, and so I washed out. So we'll just reuse that. I'll show you what it looks like. Here is one that I did. And this is what it looks like clear. I don't know if that's close enough for you. This is what it looks like clear. So if I were to Mod Podge directly onto this, it's going to have sort of like a stained glass look. And what I've used on top of it is a cute little napkin that I have at home. And so it looks like this. So that's what that's going to look like if you use it clear. I have another jar that I've painted white. My daughter had some white glue paint. So I painted it white, and now the second one I'm going to use over white, just to see what that looks like. So that's awesome. I had some ribbon, so if you have some ribbon or something to top off the top, I had some of this left over. I don't know if you remember these wrapped paper. That's what this is. That's a long time ago. So twisted, it was all twisted up. You had to untwist it. So I'm not great at bows. So that's what this ends up with. I'm going to put some beans in here, or some coffee beans, or maybe some popcorn, uncooked popcorn, to stabilize it. And then I'm going to put some flowers in there. Our second one that we will do is a light switch. Whoops, goes this way. So that's my finished product. This is also with a napkin. Just regular light switch, take off the wall, Mod Podge it. But you can use magazine. If you got a really pretty scenic view picture in a magazine, you can Mod Podge that. Or what I really want to try is the funny papers. I think that would look so fun. The Sunday funny papers, or maybe they come colored every day now. I don't know. I don't get the paper, but I have some friends that do. So that's what I'm going to do with this one, is I'm going to use the funny papers, because I think they'll look really great. But right now, we're going to start with this. So I have my protected material here so I don't mess up my table. So I thought the idea of using a light switch was awesome. Janet Ward had that idea, and she's done before when her kids were younger, so I thought that was a great idea. So that's why I wanted to add in here. But you could do anything. I don't know how much of my table you can see, but I actually Mod Podged my table. So I have words on it. And so I Mod Podged the table. So that's really neat. So I just have a bowl, a old paper bowl, and I poured some of this in just to make it easier. I have a spongy brush, but you can use any kind of brush. Hold up, I'm getting ahead of myself. You can use any kind of brush, or like a makeup sponge to make that work. So I'm actually going to use this. I'm going to unwrap it, my tissue paper. So you've got to, it's 2-ply, so I've got to take off 1-ply. Make it look better. And so I'm going to confess that I started separating this before I turned the camera on, because that's not easy. They've got this extra part on the ends to make sure it stays together. So adding a little bit of water helps you to separate this, or you rub it between your fingers. Or if you've got extra, like this one has a whole bunch of white on each side, you could just cut that end off, because they've sealed the edges. But if you can get in further from the edges, that might help you. So I don't need this brush. and see how much thinner it is and how you can see through it better. That's why it looks like this when you put it straight on glass. So I'm just going to cut the edges off, so a pair of scissors would be handy. And just measure it around your piece that you are Mod Podging, and then you can cut off the excess. So I've used this napkin once before. Not this actual napkin, but these napkins for my first one. So I know how much it actually meets on my project. So I am going to wrap it around this way. And then, so on the first one, I did not paint anything, obviously, and my napkin's only going to go for the main part. So this time, when I painted it all the way up to the edges because I'm going to put some ribbon on that. If I had some raffia, I do not, but if I had some, I think that would be super cute, even added with a bow. But that's that stringy grass looking stuff. And I don't have that, but I do have some ribbon. This gold ribbon for Christmas time. I think that's going to look cute to offset my stained glass look. So what you do is you measure it, which I already did, but you just wrap it around your piece to see how you want it to fit. My part is all the same. Everything looks the same on this pattern on my napkin, so I don't have to figure out a place where I want to place it. So I just use a little bit at a time. So I'm just doing one panel of my jar. And then I'm going to lay this down. I cut the edges off because I don't need the whole amount. So cut the edges off. So I have a little bit of extra tissue paper. Actually, that's what I'm going to use. This tissue from my napkin. And I'm going to use it to smooth out. But you know something else that I forgot to bring today? But a little piece of crumpled up cellophane works great. Because your fingers might get a little stuck to this glue. And this tissue paper is super thin, so I don't want to put a lot of pressure on it. So if you could put something in between your fingers and the piece that you're working on, that will make it look better. So cellophane, just a little piece of cellophane, scrunch it up like this, works great, and you can smooth out the wrinkles. So I'm going to my next panel, just like this. I love this jar. It's squared. It's got flat sides. So that's really neat. I like that. So you just lay down your paper just like that and smooth it out. Now then, I don't get it perfectly smooth. I don't think that's really the option. The goal. I don't think that's really the goal. But especially with this, it looks like stained glass. And so I'm not concerned about that. But this, having the extra paper really helps. Makes a huge difference. So I'm going to paint my next panel. So you could, if you wanted to, this napkin, it was the long vertical kind. I could have cut it in pieces and just used, placed it vertically on top of my piece, like each flat side, and kind of seamed them together. But I thought this would look good. Actually, that's how I did the first one, and I liked it a lot, so decided to go this route. But you'll see a different way of doing it with the light switch cover. All right, I got one more side here. So I could have measured it and made it closer. See how I have a tail? I have a lot extra here. I chose not to, but that works great too. I'm gonna cut on the back end. So as you see, I'm coming down for this last part. And then have this extra. I'm gonna snip off. See? Add a little bit more on my Mod Podge right here. And it looks great. See? Now that on the bottom, I'm adding a little extra on the bottom so I can make sure that everything is glued down nicely. And I'm just starting at one end and going and gathering it. Now, if you had a sharp edge to your bottle, say it was more flat, I don't know what you'd be Mod Podging, but you could always cut slits, and we'll actually be doing that in the next part of this. See? That worked out so well. And then, so now we have it under. We need to put it on top. The glue, the Mod Podge. So now that that's all finished, all I'm going to do is put a layer on top. So that seals it on. Make sure it stays together. Everything has a nice shine to it. You see how it's kind of milky right now? We're going to set it aside and let it dry while we work on the second craft. But it dries clear. So don't have to worry about this milky part. It'll go away. Now, I don't know if you can tell yet, but maybe when we come back to it after it dries, see how much darker the color, how much more vibrant the color is without, with adding white paint underneath or some sort of base paint. If you're, whatever paper you're Mod Podging, if it's got a different kind of backing to it, like say it has a blue base color to it or green, you might, if you have some paint at home, you might want to paint that first. Let it dry and then Mod Podge on top if you want more of a vibrant color. But I love both of these. This first one just reminds me so much of stained glass, and I could, if I had some white or clear little Christmas lights or something, once I get into that box, then I could put that inside. They make these little, I think they're fairy lights, they're called. They're battery powered. I have some somewhere. That might look cute in these jars. See? There we go. So I'm going to set this just a little bit aside and we'll watch it dry. Awesome. Now, we're going to let that dry and we're going to go to the light switch. So I think this is so pretty. So it's a neat little cocktail napkin. And my favorite colors are earth tonies. So I cheated again and started one end. So anyway, that's why I picked up these napkins. Because they just go with my colors. But you may have napkins at home or magazines at home. You don't have to go buy anything. This is the fun part about it, to experiment and see what you have at home that you can use. Be creative. All right. So now I have this, and I don't need all of it. I am going to set it up on my light switch and see where I like to set it. This end has some words at the bottom, so I don't really want that. So I'm going to cut the white part off, and I'm going to use the side that doesn't have writing at the bottom. And then I'm just going to place it on my piece and see where exactly I want what of this. It happens to be wine glasses. I don't actually drink wine, but it's gorgeous, so I love it. And I'll see where I want this to sit on my piece. I think I like that right there. So I'm only going to do part of it at a time. Even though this piece is small, I want to make sure that I get it on there right. So I am just going to paint some of this glue on part of my light switch cover. And this will last forever. I think Janet said she did hers like years ago, and it still looks great. So then I'm going to lay this down where I want it. Remember, you can always cut off the edges. And then I'm going to use my crumpled up paper and pat it on there. It has a neat antique-y look. One, the colors blend that way. But, I mean, just the napkin itself already has the colors blending together. But when Mod Podging on here, it has these little tiny wrinkles that I'm digging. I really like it, so I'm not going to try to smooth all that out because I want it on there. Now then, I have the other half, so I'm going to put some Mod Podge on there. Now, if you've noticed, there's holes in this one, right? We got where the light switch is supposed to go, and we've got where the screws to get it back on my wall. So, don't worry, we'll take care of that. Now, you could cut it out ahead of time, but I found this worked just fine. So, pull this up. All right, I'm going to trim off the extra. Don't need all this. Just like so. All right, so I might use that for something else later. Clean up my workspace a little bit. All right, so I want to wrap it around the edges. So I'm just being real delicate with holding this. I can feel a little bit of the glue on my hands, but I'm being careful not to move my hand around because I don't want to rip the paper. So then I'm going to snip the corners just like this. Take my little paper and wrap it around. If you're using like a page from a magazine, the paper is actually going to be thicker than this tissue paper. So you know, it'll be more forgiving, I think. This is just like, it feels just like tissue paper, like wrapping tissue paper. And I thought of another idea I want to try with some of my pasta jars is little scrap pieces of tissue paper, all different colors, you know. I don't know if you save that after you open a gift or but I do. And so I have a whole bunch of different colors of tissue paper that I'd like to break up in little pieces and maybe, almost touch that wet one. Maybe make my own rendition of this paper instead of one that was already made. So for my light switch hole, I am poking a hole with my scissor, and then I am snipping just like we did the outside corners. I'm snipping corners. And then I'm just going to fold it over. So I'm going to make sure I still have nice fresh glue back here. And no one's going to see the back of my light switch anyway. So I'm good with it just folding over. Then I'm using my paper and folding it just like that. And attaching it to the back without my fingers ripping. See? That worked just fine. Now, similar with the holes for the screws. The screws are actually a flat head and will cover up this little part I just poked through, but I just used my scissors and poked through. And then using my hand, or maybe a little bit of this. If you want, you can use like a toothpick, but the scissors work just fine. And again, once I put the screw in to put it back on my wall, you're not going to see where I poked through. Ta-da! So now, I need to put my top coat on. So I still have some more my Mod Podge here. And I'm going to put it on top. Again, it looks milky, but don't worry about it because it's going to dry clear. So I'm doing all these edges, and it's getting on my table cover here. I want to make sure that I am painting in one direction. So I don't think actually on my first piece, both of them, I can't see the brush strokes, but on my table I can see the brush strokes. And I used, I didn't use a brush, I used a spongy brush. So you just might want to finish off before it's drying, everything in the same direction. Just be on the safe side. And whatever you're using, whether you're using a real brush or a makeup brush, makeup sponge. That's it. And then I am going to move it over a little bit with my scissors so it doesn't actually glue to my workplace space. And that's it. It's going to dry. And it's going to look just like this. Now I have two. And if there's a tackiness to it, this feels actually pretty good to me. But if the glue is kind of tacky, you can always put a clear coat of acrylic sealer on it. And then it's not gonna feel tacky at all. And then this is what this one looked like. Here is the one, it's still drying. So we won't see what that finished product is, I don't suppose, because it's taking longer than I thought it might. But I plan on putting some ribbon around the top, just stuff I already have at home. And it's neat, it's fun, it's easy, and you can do it all with stuff you have at your house. So thanks for joining me today. Hope to see you next time. Have a great day.